Hey guys, it's Ellen Brock, novel editor. Today I'm going to talk about how to know if your novel idea is a good idea. Writers will fairly often ask, is this a good idea for a novel? Or of all of these ideas, which idea should I focus on? Which idea is the best and has the most potential? The thing is, the idea behind your novel is rarely the determining factor in whether it's successful or marketable. Now, that's not to say that there aren't bad ideas. There are bad ideas. Writing a children's book about the sexual escapades of a 20-year-old is a bad idea. But in the vast majority of cases, there's nothing wrong with the idea. It's not particularly good, it's not particularly bad. So you might be wondering if there's not really any such thing as a bad idea, or very few books fall under that umbrella of bad ideas. How could you know if a book is worth pursuing, or how could you know if a novel is marketable? To answer that question, we have to first talk about plot versus premise. The premise is just the idea behind the story. When people talk about their novel ideas, they're usually just talking about the premise. So here's an example of a premise. An orphan goes to live with a foster family where she's not wanted and eventually warms the hearts of her new guardians. What story am I talking about? This could be Annie, it could be Pollyanna, Heidi, Anne of Green Gables. Here's another premise. A group of children are teleported into a fantasy world. This could be A Wrinkle in Time, Half Magic, The Magician's Nephew, and about 900,000 other books. These premises are not that distinct and they're not that original. They've been done a lot of times. Most novels are not selling based on the idea. They are selling based on the strength of the writer, unique attributes of the story, compelling characters, interesting world building. There are very few stories in any given year. If you were to look at the bulk of stories, very few of them are built on a highly original premise. There is a small subset of books with really captivating premises. These are books that are usually called high concept. Basically, these are books with excellent elevator pitches where when someone hears about the book, just the idea of the book, that person is like, wow, I need to read this book. This book sounds so amazing. Examples of that would be The Hunger Games. It's very high concept, the idea of teenagers fighting to the death. Another example is Jurassic Park, that idea of cloning dinosaurs and going to a park full of dinosaurs. It's like, wow, what would that be like? That's so cool. But those books are a minority of the books that are published in any given year. In most situations, probably 98% of the time, the book is not going to sell based on the premise. If your story really does have an awesome premise and it really is high concept, that is great, but your work is not done. You still need an excellent plot. A strong premise, it's not enough to get you published without also having a strong and compelling plot. For the 95+% of you guys who are watching and you're not writing a high concept novel, you need to have something else going for you. You need to have something to replace the not super captivating premise. You need to have something else going for you. That could be a unique character with a very distinct or unusual perspective. It might be a really strong writing style. It might be a really cool setting, something that's really unique, a lot of fun world building. There are lots of options, but you need something, some sort of wow factor to elevate the story. The premise, it's fine that the premise is not the most unique thing that's ever been invented, but you need something to elevate that idea, to make it more exciting and to make it more marketable. Just because the idea, the premise isn't particularly unique, or maybe it is unique but it's not high concept, that doesn't mean that the writer doesn't totally love the premise. And what you need to make sure, if you want your novel idea to be strong, you want your novel to be marketable, you need to make sure that you're excited about the plot and not just the idea. If you're just excited about the idea, there's a really good chance that the plot is going to fall flat. So an easy and a good question to ask yourself is, which plot points am I excited about? Is there an interesting betrayal, or maybe a surprising conflict that just comes out of nowhere, or a really dramatic showdown between two characters? If you have specific plot events that you're excited about, that's a really good sign that your plot is working. If you think about the plot and there's nothing that you're particularly excited about, there's no plot point that you're proud of, or you feel like the plot is sort of interchangeable, that you don't really feel that strongly about it, that you'd be, just as happy to write the same world or the same characters but a different story, that's a good sign that the idea, the premise, and the plot combined are not working very well, that you don't have a complete picture. It's not about the idea being bad. At that point, it's about the execution of the idea. Focus on the craft of writing, focus on understanding plot and scene structure, and if you need more help with that, I do have videos that specifically address plot structure and scene structure. Don't worry so much about whether the idea is a good idea. The melding of the idea with a good plot, with strong characters, with good world building, that's what makes the book work. So I really hope this video helped you. I know it's kind of disappointing that I can't give you guys like an easy formula for a good idea versus a bad idea. It just doesn't really work that way. But I do hope that this eased some of your worries, especially if you're the type of writer who isn't writing a high concept book. I know I've talked to a lot of writers who are kind of anxious or worried about that. It's not something to worry about. There's nothing wrong with writing a book that is not high concept, but if you are writing a high concept book, that's great too, but please don't neglect the plot because the premise alone will not sell your book. This video has been part of my novel bootcamp series. I'll be posting a new video 3 to 4 days per week throughout August. I'll also be hosting workshops on my blog, so if you want to check that out, I will put a link in the description. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can get more writing advice from me, and you can also ask me questions and see pictures of my beautiful dog, Toby. So I am at Ellen M. Brock, but also there's a link in the description. Happy writing, guys.